Battlefield 2042 received its 4.0 update, which brought a laundry list of bug fixes, performance improvements, and small quality of life updates. The game is certainly in a better state than it's ever been, and we're seeing a larger player population return when compared to last month's patch. But there's still plenty left for DICE to change before the game can achieve a true comeback, especially with regards to one critical component. Hey guys, LevelCap here, and today I want to talk about Battlefield 2042's playable state at present and its path forward. DICE's recent patch has been good for the game. I've seen many players say that this is how the game should have launched, and I would tend to agree with that sentiment. It's certainly not perfect, there's bugs and balance issues still, but compared to even last patch, it's a pretty substantial change in just the overall quality of life. The game now has VoIP, a fully working and detailed scoreboard, more weapon balance and functional attachments, and has most of the legacy features that Battlefield fans would expect from a normal Battlefield launch title. However, it's still missing a core component that may prevent it from being able to revive itself or even maintain servers, and that's a tool for finding and maintaining fully populated matches. All previous Battlefield games rolled their server population over from one match to the next. This had the benefit of starting a match with a full server, guns blazing from the start. The downside, however, was that dominant teams would often remain dominant into the next match, causing strings of one-sided matches over and over and over again. And DICE never really figured out how to properly team balance with this rollover method for some reason, as there was plenty of very good suggestions from the community during, say, the era of Battlefield 5. Currently, Battlefield 2042 disbands servers after a match ends. The next time you join a game, it'll be entirely new teams and mostly new players. Although the current low player population, you're probably going to see a lot of the same players. And one of the benefits to remaking a new server every time is that there's less one-sided matches. Most of the matches I play feel closer in score and seem less dominated overall. And that's not to say that matches can't sway heavy for one team, but the amount of times that it happens compared to previous games is way less, and honestly, that is a very good thing considering how often it would happen in previous Battlefield games. Of course, the new system has its downside. Disbanding servers after every round forces people to repopulate the new server again. This wasn't as big of an issue at launch when there was tons of active players to quickly fill a 128 player server, but now with low player population, most of my games start off with half or even less of the slots filled with real players. This means that for the first half of a match, there's tons of bots backfilling those server slots and doling down the gameplay experience. Sometimes 2 out of 3 players that I see or engage with will be bots. Now, as the match progresses, more players will join and start to replace those bots, so that by the time the match is maybe 2/3 of the way through, it's often mostly real players. But then the round ends and the process starts all over, forcing you back into another Battlefield server mostly populated with bots that slowly has to build up its normal player population. And to make matters even worse, requeuing for games will often put you back on the same map that you just played, which you will especially notice when it's your least favorite map. And then to compound things even further, well, there's no way of telling which game modes are populated at the moment. So right now you might hop into the landing page and spend 10 to 15 minutes trying to queue for modes that'll just never fill up, before realizing that players are only playing one of the game modes at the moment. And it's become a chore to figure out which mode to play rather than deciding what you're in the mood for. And I'm bringing up the matchmaking issue now. It's certainly not the first time I've mentioned it, but now especially because I could see myself playing more Battlefield 2042 if it simply had the tools to allow me to match into full servers on maps that I enjoy. The game is getting better. 4.0 is definitely a step forward, but it still has this massive roadblock to sustaining populations. And I imagine if this is keeping me from playing more Battlefield, then it's certainly affecting other players in the same way. And what's going to happen when DICE starts to roll out better content, but the player population is struggling to get off the ground because the matchmaking system is causing more people to abandon queues instead of rolling over to new maps and full matches? DICE fixed the issue of endlessly imbalanced teams, but they replaced it with a far worse problem that may prevent the game from being able to repopulate even when the content gets better. Now obviously I don't have DICE's internal data on player retention rates, I only have the Steam stats and my personal experiences. And while one-sided matches were big problems in past Battlefield games, at least I had the option to leave a match and find a new populated server. I'm a bit perplexed as to why DICE had so much trouble in the past designing an effective team balancer and why that wasn't the priority moving forward. 2042 did a lot of reinventing the Battlefield wheel. Battlefield is an FPS franchise that's 2 decades old, and 2042 removed many core features that have been a part of its design since 2002, the server browser being one of them. And while I'm not saying the franchise shouldn't try and evolve, I think it has evolved amazingly compared to the original game, but each evolution should attempt to be an upgrade. And to fix a problem that has been a problem for quite a while, such as team balance, it should be done without creating an equal or worse problem elsewhere in the game. Now, to try and bring this whole thing around for perhaps a positive spin, the 4.0 update is without question a step in the right direction, and I know it's not really okay to say good job DICE because, well, yes, it should have been in this state probably at launch, but you know what? Most of the people working on the game probably had no say in when it launched or what state it launched in, so for everyone on the team that's working hard to get it into a better state, thanks for your hard work. I do believe and have always believed that any game can make a comeback. It just has to become a good game and the players will do the rest. And 2042 is getting there. The big push that is certainly going to get a lot of people back in to test the game out will be specialist reworks and new content drops like maps and weapons. Really, my fear isn't about getting players back in to test out the game, it's that leaving the matchmaking system in its current state may prevent a solid player foundation from developing, and I hope DICE is seriously thinking about this. With all the feedback attention given to map design and lack of class system, it's pretty easy to forget that some of the back-end systems may be having a bigger effect than people realize. With the low player population, I've seen a lot of people post about their difficulty to find matches and the quantity of bots in their games, and it's easy to interpret the problem as simply just low player numbers, but it's also important to remember that crossplay is enabled between all the major gaming platforms, and the Steam player numbers only accounts for one of the many platforms that this game is played on, and that matches should be a lot easier to find even with low player populations. There's plenty of indie shooters with similar or lower player counts that I can jump into right now and have an absolute fantastic match one after the other after the other. Most indie shooters, even with large map sizes of say 100 players, are designed to function well with Battlefield 2042 player numbers or even less, so there's no good reason to be playing against so many bots in Battlefield 2042. Obviously, the easy solution here is a server browser, but there's plenty of other approaches DICE could take to improve their matchmaking system. Anyway, let me know what you guys think of the 4.0 patch. I streamed it the other day and was generally pleased with the progress and balance changes. And as always, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. This is Level Cap, signing off.